may be seated. Welcome back. Ready to get started again. Does the defense wish to put on any proof?
We do, Your Honor.
All right, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the first witness will be Officer Dunlap.
Stand here, faces us. Raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear affirm and tell the whole truth?
I do.
All right, you may have a seat, sir.
Would you please state and spell your name?
Ryan Dunlap, RYANDUNLAP.
Officer,
Officer, yes.
where are you currently employed?
Collierville Police Department.
Were you also employed there on April the 4th of 2019?
I was.
How long have you been with Collierville?
Since 2017.
Okay. I want to take you back to April the 4th of 2019. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Okay. Did you go to an apartment complex in Collierville?
I did.
And why did you go to that apartment complex?
We received a shots fired call.
When you went to the apartment complex, you went up, did you go up some stairs
I did.
and then towards an apartment?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor, publish part of cumulative exhibit 12.
Yes.
Officer Dunlap, is this the apartment that you responded to?
Yes, it looks like it.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about where you were in relation to where this picture is taken when you responded. Where were you standing?
Outside the doorway, probably 5 to 10 feet from the actual doorway.
Okay, so you actually could have like taken that picture from where you were standing.
Yes.
Okay. When you responded on the scene, did you see anyone?
I saw Officer Draper and Officer McLean talking to an individual on the bottom floor. And then
Okay.
they went upstairs and I followed them.
And that was another tenant of the building?
Yes.
And after that conversation, y'all went upstairs?
Yes.
When you went to the apartment, did you see anyone inside the apartment?
Yes, I saw 3 individuals. 2 were laying on the ground, and 1 was standing behind them, holding a gun.
Okay, and that was a man and a woman on the ground,
Yes,
and a woman standing.
yes,
And that was Latoshia Daniels that was standing.
yes, ma'am.
When you saw Miss Daniels, she had a weapon in her hand?
She did.
Do you remember seeing that?
I do.
Did anyone give her any verbal commands about putting the gun down?
Yes,
Do you remember how long you were at that door?
I do not recall.
As people were giving her these verbal commands, do you recall what you saw Miss Daniels doing?
Just standing there, staring at us.
Did she seem responsive to you?
No,
Did you see her at any point raise the gun to herself?
yes. After standing there for a minute, she knelt down and put the gun next to her head.
Did you see her, and I'm not asking you for any content of what anyone else said, but did you see her or hear her speaking softly to herself?
I'd have to refer to the reports, but I don't recall anything.
Would it help you to refer to your report?
It could.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
That was just his use of force.
In my report, it states that She stated that she had ruined her life.
Well, and we're not, I don't
I'm
want you to
sorry.
say what anybody said. Do you remember hearing her speaking to herself?
I said, I can't recall.
Did you note that she was?
I did note that she
Yes,
was speaking.
that she was speaking softly, and that she was not really communicating with y'all?
Correct.
And during this interaction, y'all were yelling at her, right? I need you to
Yes,
answer
sorry.
all that. Thank you. Court reporter's taking everything down that we said.
Gotcha.
And as you were yelling at her, she was not really registering what you were yelling. Is that a fair assessment of what you saw?
I guess so.
Now, at some point, you said you saw her put the gun to her head.
Yes,
Do you remember seeing that?
I do.
When you saw that, could you see the gun?
I could.
Are you familiar with guns?
I am.
Do you know what it looks like when the slide is cocked back
I do.
and the gun is cleared?
Yes.
Did Miss Daniels' gun have the slide back, or did it look normal?
It looked like the slide was not locked back.
Okay, so it looked like it was
It
in
looked
normal.
normal. Yeah.
And if she had put the gun to her head and that slide was back, is that something that you would have noticed?
I would assume so.
At some point during this interaction, there was a decision made to use a less lethal round. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
I do.
Do you remember the first gun misfiring?
I do.
Do you remember another officer going down to get another weapon?
I do not remember which officer it was, or
Do you remember that that happened?
I was focused on her. I wasn't really focused on what they were doing.
But at some point, Officer Jenkins deployed that less lethal round,
Yes.
and then Ms. Daniels was taken into custody.
Yes.
Prior to that point, you indicated that you saw Ms. Daniels put the gun to her own head.
Yes.
Did you ever see her point the gun again at the two people on the ground?
No.
At any point did Ms. Daniels point the gun at the officers?
No.
At any point did she threaten the officers?
No.
At that point in time, did y'all deem her to be a threat to herself?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor, just a moment. That's all I have, Your Honor.
It's cross-examination. You may step down, sir.
Thanks, sir.
You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Amanda Bidding.
You can step this way, ma'am. Stand here, face the judge, raise your right hand.
Do you swear to affirm and tell the whole truth?
I do.
All right, you may have a seat, ma'am.
Watch your step.
You may proceed.
Would you please state and spell your name?
My name is Dr. Amanda Bidding, A-M-A-N-D-A, B as in boy, I-T-T-I-N-G.
How are you employed?
I work full-time at Vanderbilt University Medical Center as an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences.
Your Honor, may I pass forward a document? Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
Your Honor, I'd ask that that be made the next number exhibit. I believe that's 21.
Any objection?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll show curriculum by St. Mark's Exhibit 21.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Dr. Bidding, can you tell me a little bit about your professional career, starting with your education?
Yes. I obtained an undergraduate degree from Eastern Kentucky University in psychology. Then I went on to get my PhD in clinical psychology from Sam Houston State University, which is in Texas. As part of getting your PhD in clinical psychology, you have to do a year of clinical work under supervision. I did that year at Utah State Hospital in Provo, Utah, where I did forensic evaluations and also
And Dr. Beard,
treatment.
excuse me, you can
Yes.
speak up for me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Like you're trying to reach the back of the room.
Okay.
All right.
After my time at Utah State Hospital, I had my PhD, and then I did another year of specialized training in forensic psychology for the state of Minnesota. After all of that, I was a licensed psychologist, and I worked for several years at Utah State Hospital doing forensic evaluations and participating in training. I also did some treatment, and then I came to Nashville and started working for Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Most of my work at Vanderbilt is doing forensic evaluations, but I also do treatment and then training with psychology trainees and psychiatry trainees.
Do you have any special licenses or certifications?
I am a licensed psychologist. I am certified by the state of Tennessee to do like court-ordered evaluations for people that are charged with a crime. And then I am also board certified in forensic psychology, which means that I went through a rigorous process where people who are experts in the field of forensic psychology reviewed my work, and I had to defend that work to them, and then they said, yes, we think that you are, you do high quality work, and so then I was board certified by the American Board of Professional Psychology.
Now, you indicated that in your practice now, you have both forensic and clinical practices, right?
That's correct.
And in the past, you have also engaged in clinical evaluations.
That's right.
What is the difference between a clinical evaluation and a forensic evaluation?
A clinical evaluation is typically where a psychologist sees someone to figure out if they have some sort of mental health diagnosis. We'll give treatment recommendations, whether that is for a school or for them to go seek treatment somewhere else. A forensic evaluation is when a psychologist evaluates somebody specific to a legal question. So whether the person is having mental health symptoms, that would be relevant to something in a legal case. That would be able to speak to their ability to get through their case, maybe their mental state at the time of whatever they're accused of doing. There are other things, but it would be related to something in the legal arena.
Does that forensic examination require distinct training above the, or aside from the clinical?
It doesn't require distinct training, however, it is highly recommended because it is different than the typical clinical work that most psychologists do.
And you have that forensic training?
I do.
Have you taught any classes, anything?
Yes, I've taught mostly through supervision. So I supervise clinical work, but I've supervised trainees doing forensic evaluations and then have taught never a full course. Actually, that's not true. I did teach a full course in forensic psychology, but then also do like short, hour to 3 hour long lectures sometimes on forensic psychology.
Which kind of brings me to my next question. Have you published peer review articles and have you been a presenter at continuing education seminars?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know approximately how many?
I've published, I think, around 7. I've been an author on about 7 peer-reviewed articles. Presented at a conference approximately 15 times over my career, and then been asked to present at other talks, I think approximately 5 to 10 times.
Have you received any specific honors or awards?
Yes, the honors and awards that I've received are mostly from graduate school, but the biggest honor in terms of since I've become a licensed psychologist is that board certification in forensic psychology.
Are you a member of any professional associations?
Yes, a member of the American Psychological Association, and then kind of a subgroup of that, the American Psychology and Law Society.
Have you previously testified as an expert in a court of law?
Yes,
Have you testified for the state?
yes,
Have you testified for the defense?
yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to tender Dr. Amanda Bidding as an expert in both clinical and forensic psychology.
Any objection? We'll show Dr. Amanda Bidding as declared expert in clinical and forensic psychology.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Bidding, whether you're testifying for the state or for the defense, does that matter as to what ultimate opinion you render?
It should not. One of the main principles of forensic psychology is to always try to do an objective assessment. So to give opinions and come to conclusions based on the information that I review versus what side hires me.
And why is that important?
For multiple reasons. I want to be helpful to the court, and if I come in and just give an opinion that the attorney wants me to give, that's probably not very helpful. But also it makes people not look very credible if they come in and their conclusions aren't based on the actual information that they had and they seem biased.
In this case, did you meet with Latoshia Daniels for an evaluation?
I did.
Now, I want to be clear, you are not coming before this jury to say that this is not guilty by reason of insanity, right?
That's right.
Can you tell the jury what not guilty by reason of insanity means?
Not guilty by reason of insanity is a plea someone can enter when they are asserting some sort of mental health defense. Typically, a defendant, if they plead not guilty by reason of insanity, they're trying to say, I was so mentally ill at the time that this happened that I didn't really understand what I was doing, or I didn't really appreciate that what I was doing was wrong.
Is the threshold, how high is the threshold for that degree of mental illness?
It is very rare for someone to be that severely mentally ill at the time of a crime to not really understand what they're doing or not be able to appreciate the wrongfulness of their actions. So it's a rare defense.
Would that actually require almost like a psychotic event?
Most of the time, it is because the person is having psychotic symptoms, yes.
And psychosis is different than regular mental health issues.
Psychosis is under the umbrella of mental health issues, but typically psychosis means that the person is out of touch with reality. They're not assessing the environment accurately anymore.
Another aspect of kind of the legal area of your field would be diminished capacity, right?
Right.
Now, because of limited information, were you able to make a determination on diminished capacity here?
I was not.
And that's because Ms. Daniels couldn't remember a part of what happened?
That's correct.
Now, I want to talk to you about the sources of information that you used in coming to the determinations that you did about Ms. Daniels, okay?
Okay.
Do you recall kind of generally what types of sources you used?
Yes, I was provided some information by Ms. Fuchs that included like discovery information in the case, so police reports, recordings of the 911 calls. I was also provided some journal entries from Ms. Daniels herself. I also interviewed Ms. Daniels. I spoke to a collateral contact, and I did some psychological testing with Ms. Daniels.
Did you also just watch Officer Dunlap testify?
I did.
Now, I want to talk to you about the evaluation part of it. Is it common in psychology to have the person that you are examining be your primary source of information?
In forensic psychology, we certainly don't want the defendant to be the primary source of information. Many times when I'm trying to assess someone's mental state, they're the person that's best able to tell me their mental state. But typically that needs to be corroborated. There needs to be some other data that supports what the defendant is saying, and typically that comes from things like police reports, observations of the defendant at the time of the offense, 911 recordings, body cam footage, things like that.
Getting ahead. Here, did you get self-reporting from Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
And then compare it to corroborating information?
Yes.
Did you find corroborating information?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk to you about Miss Daniels' background, okay?
Okay.
Did you discuss her childhood with her?
I did.
Did you find any particular trauma history in her childhood?
Yes.
What trauma history did you find in her childhood? You don't have to give a detail, but in general.
She detailed being physically abused by her mother during her childhood and emotionally abused by both her mother and her stepfather in some ways.
Do you recall her stepfather being abusive with her mother?
She also witnessed domestic violence between her stepfather and her mother.
Do you recall if there was any psychological impact from having to hide that from other people?
I don't know that she described psychological impact at the time, but she described how when she was a child, it was expected that she present like everything was okay. When they were in public, her stepfather was apparently a pastor. And so it was kind of the expectation that all of those things that were happening inside the home be kept secret, and that no one knew those things. And so she kind of had to like put on a happy face, for lack of a better term.
Do you still see the manifestation of that mentality currently?
That's certainly how she described herself functioning throughout the rest of her life, of kind of pushing down any sort of negative things that were happening in life and presenting herself like she had it all together.
Does Miss Daniels have a family history of mental health? And I don't want you to get into details there, but just generally, does she have a family history?
Yes, she said she has a family history of mental illness and substance use problems on both her mom and her dad's side of the family.
I want to talk to you briefly about her educational history, okay?
Okay.
She has a master's as a licensed clinical social worker, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Can someone who is that educated struggle with mental health?
Absolutely.
Can someone who is in the mental health field struggle with mental health?
Absolutely.
Would that be uncommon?
I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question with any real data. I certainly am aware of several people in the mental health field that have mental health problems themselves.
Now, I want to talk to you about Ms. Daniels' relationship and mental health history, okay?
Okay.
Based on your evaluation of her, did you find those two things kind of going hand in hand?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Daniels had been married at a young age.
That's correct.
Do you remember whether that resulted in a divorce?
It did.
Do you remember the psychological impact of that divorce on Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that?
She described that divorce kind of breaking her in a sense. Divorce was seen as sinful in her family. I think she kind of viewed it as a failure on her part. And she became so emotionally distraught at the ending of her marriage that is when she described attempting suicide.
Now, she did then get remarried, based on your information, right?
That's correct.
And did she describe any emotional trauma from that marriage?
Yes, she described that marriage as just generally unfulfilling. She felt neglected, ignored, unappreciated. She kind of described feeling like she had kind of pulled him into the marriage and that he was never really wanting to be with her, is kind of how she felt during that marriage.
He was very emotionally distant with her?
That's what she described, yes.
And that was, she suffered some pretty severe depression symptoms during that marriage, right?
Toward the end of the marriage, they were married for about 8 years. Toward the end of the marriage, she described starting to have depressive symptoms, not wanting to go home, frequent crying, kind of losing some motivation, feeling hopeless.
Do you remember her describing sitting in the driveway and crying at the thought of having to go inside?
Yes.
So I want to talk to you then about her next step in counseling, okay?
Okay.
She told you that she and her husband, that she'd wanted her husband to go to counseling and he wouldn't.
That's right.
So she sought out spiritual counseling.
That's correct.
Did she tell you why she sought out spiritual counseling?
The way that she described it to me is that she wanted someone, I think, to kind of give her assurance that her relationship with God would not be affected if she got divorced again, if another marriage ended. And so she wanted to talk to somebody in her church about that.
And at the time she reached out for that counseling, was she endorsing depressive symptoms at that point?
She described to me having depressive symptoms at that time, yes.
Now, that's kind of her background, right?
Yes.
Okay, so from there, I want to shift to the psychological testing that you did, okay?
Okay.
What is the PAI?
The PAI is a common measure that's given by psychologists. It's a self-report measure. You fill it out yourself. And essentially it's questions that get at any sort of mental health symptoms that you're having at the time that you take the test, a history of mental health symptoms, and then it asks questions about someone's kind of general personality traits.
Did you give Ms. Daniels the PAI?
I did.
And what were your determinations after that test?
So kind of her results on the test, there are some scales on the test called validity scales that give me information about whether the person was endorsing a lot of symptoms, to where you might be concerned that they're trying to look more ill than they are, whether the person was being sort of defensive where they're not endorsing anything, or if maybe they were confused by items. So that's the first part of the measure. And Ms. Daniels' results suggested that she was not endorsing things that most people do endorse. So not endorsing some negative aspects of herself that many people would be willing to endorse. So she was a little defensive. There was also some evidence that she might have been confused by some of the items, but not to the point where I couldn't interpret the other scales on the measure.
So the defensiveness that you were describing, is that also known as underreporting?
Yes.
What is underreporting?
Well, underreporting, just in general, is where somebody does not endorse having symptoms that they really are having. The scale on the PAI can't tell me exactly why she kind of elevated that scale. It could be due to several things. It could be due to a person knowing their symptoms and choosing not to report them, but it can also be due to somebody not having insight into their symptoms or their problems. So just not really knowing that they have these issues.
Did you make any specific findings about Ms. Daniels' personality?
Based on that measure, she was endorsing things, so even though she was a little defensive, she was endorsing a history of trauma, a history of some sort of traumatic event that was still bothering her. She also endorsed a history of kind of chaotic or stormy relationships. She endorsed kind of a lack of sense of self, kind of problems with identity and knowing who she is and where she wants to go in life. Those are the things that I'm remembering right now.
Did she, in your assessment of her, did she test as being someone with anger issues?
No, that did not come up at all on the measure, which that measure does assess for anger issues.
Did she actually assess in the opposite direction?
Thank you. Yes, she, her responses on that measure suggest that she's actually kind of the opposite. She's passive, meek, doesn't like hostility, doesn't like conflict, and tries to probably avoid conflict.
The validity scales that you were talking about, are those what are also known as a malingering test built into the test?
Yes. It's not a test designed to assess specifically for malingering, but it's related. It's essentially is this person's reporting of symptoms something that I think is reliable?
And what is malingering?
Malingering is when someone over-endorses symptoms. where they, it's typically what happens. They endorse a lot of mental health symptoms for the purpose of some sort of secondary gain, like getting disability benefits or trying to get out of like a prosecution in a case. Malingering can also be like acting like you have a lack of knowledge about something. That you have like a lack of memory when your memory's really fine. So it's not just kind of an over-endorsement. It can also be like a lack of knowledge or a lack of symptoms.
Did you have concerns about her regarding malingering?
No.
Did you have any concerns with her regarding over-reporting?
No.
Despite her under-reporting, were you able to rely on the results that you found?
Yes.
Now I want to talk to you about the next test. What is the trauma symptom inventory?
It's a similar measure. You fill it out yourself. It's just specific to a history of trauma and assessment for trauma-related disorders like PTSD. So similarly, it has some validity scales and then some scales to tell me what sort of trauma symptoms she's endorsing, if she's endorsing any.
Okay, and what were your results?
There were no issues with the validity scales, no evidence that she was endorsing a lot of stuff or under-endorsing things. The only thing that she endorsed in terms of trauma-related symptoms was an avoidance of memories related to her trauma and avoidance of things that would remind her of her trauma.
What does that mean?
That means that she doesn't like to think about the things that have happened to her in the past, and she avoids thinking about them.
Is that a common personality type that does that? Kind of pushes things down?
It certainly can be. It's certainly common among trauma-related disorders, and there are some personality traits that are often common with a history of trauma, where you would see the same thing.
So what was is the result that defensive avoidance, or is there a more specific result on that test?
No, the defensive that's the name of the scale that she elevated, is defensive avoidance. And what that means is that she's just avoiding those reminders and avoiding those memories.
So what was her specific results on that trauma inventory?
That was it. That was the only scale that she elevated.
Okay. Did it indicate evidence of trauma?
Yes.
Does it indicate particular trauma?
No, it doesn't give any information about the type of trauma the person has experienced.
And again, did you have any concerns about malingering during that assessment?
No.
Did you have any concerns about over-reporting during that assessment?
No.
Did you have any concerns about under-reporting during that assessment?
No.
Okay, so now I want to kind of shift gears to your evaluation regarding her mental state. Okay?
Okay.
You did review the discovery.
I did.
What stood out to you, generally speaking, in the discovery? Particularly regarding immediately after the offense.
So a lot of the discovery were police accounts. When police arrived to the scene, Miss Daniels is described as standing in the kitchen area, holding a gun, kind of talking to herself, not following commands from police to drop the gun, and kind of intermittently pointing the gun at herself.
Did you hear that consistent with Officer Dunlap's testimony?
Yes, I believe I read his report.
Did you also review Tabatha Perry's statement?
Yes.
Did anything in her statement stand out to you regarding Ms. Daniels' mental state?
So Ms. Perry's statement essentially talked about how, this happened, and she remembers seeing Ms. Daniels kind of go into the kitchen. Another thing that stood out is that at some point, Ms. Perry apparently kind of tells her to leave, that the police are coming. And Ms. Daniels says, no, it doesn't matter. and doesn't leave, even though Miss Perry is telling her to get out of there and that she won't say anything to police, essentially.
Did anything strike you about the fact that she wasn't responsive with the officers?
It could mean that she was so distressed she wasn't able to pay attention to what was happening at the time. There are, I think, different things that it can mean. What it means at the most basic level is that she was not responding to the officers like most people would if officers have guns drawn at you and are telling you to put down a gun.
During your evaluation, were you also provided a suicide note?
Yes.
Is something like that important to your evaluation?
Yes. In this particular evaluation, it was corroboration of kind of her account to me that she was feeling suicidal around the time.
And you had some medical reports indicating depressed mood and suicidal ideations around this time?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Daniels did talk to you about her version of events, right?
Yes.
With your evaluation, did you find objective evidence that corroborated what Ms. Daniels was telling you?
Yes. So the things that I found that were corroborated were that she was feeling suicidal around the time, that she was depressed around the time, and some corroboration for the things that she talked about that were happening in the relationship with the victim.
Okay. And so did you find corroboration were you provided corroboration of the fact that she did purchase a gun that
Yes.
day?
Yes.
But that was after she had written the suicide note?
I don't recall the exact time. I would have to look back in the documents.
If the suicide note that you were provided was written on April 4th, 2019 at 3:14, that would be before April the 4th, 2019 at 4:37 p.m., right?
Yes.
Did you find that sequence of events to corroborate her timeline that she provided you?
Yes.
Did you see a Marco Polo video that corroborated her saying that she had a discussion with Brodes Perry earlier that night before going to the apartment?
Yes.
Did you see Tabatha Perry's statement that corroborated that Ms. Daniels went to the apartment complex?
Yes.
Did you see reports from police officers and the statement of Ms. Perry that kind of corroborated what Ms. Daniels was telling you about her mental state at the time?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about the conclusions that you made in a clinical aspect regarding Ms. Daniels, okay?
Okay.
Did you make any diagnoses of her?
I did.
What were those?
I diagnosed Miss Daniels with major depressive disorder, which means I believe she was having depressive symptoms around the time that were severe enough to impair her functioning.
Did you make any other diagnoses of her?
I also diagnosed her with an unspecified trauma-related disorder. There was evidence in what I had that she had some symptoms of a trauma-related disorder, like that avoidance of memories and that avoidance of triggers. There was some evidence in the PAI of kind of distrust of people, but she was not meeting criteria for PTSD, which is a specific type of trauma-related disorder. She was displaying some symptoms of a just general trauma-related disorder around the time.
And again, you can't tie that to a particular trauma, right?
That's correct.
And did you have any other assessments that you made regarding her?
I also diagnosed her with an unspecified personality disorder with borderline and dependent traits. So personality disorders are where someone has personality traits that cause them problems. In the case of Miss Daniels, those traits are things like difficulty regulating negative emotions, so like difficulty kind of knowing what to do with negative emotions. Some of that history of suicide attempts, that's common with somebody with borderline personality traits. This lack of sense of self, or this difficulty with identity, is common in both borderline personality disorder and dependent personality disorder, where oftentimes the person kind of relies on other people to give them a sense of self and a sense of fulfillment. And I certainly saw that in her history of relationships, where she often kind of sought reassurance and did things that maybe she wouldn't do otherwise to kind of please the people that she was with. And that's common among somebody with dependent personality disorder.
And did she actually endorse that history with Brodes Perry, with her doing things that she was not comfortable doing?
Yes.
Can trauma affect your memory?
Yes, absolutely.
And because of Ms. Daniels' inability to remember during this traumatic event, you were unable to determine whether she would have met the criteria for diminished capacity.
Can you repeat that for me?
Absolutely. I'll try to do it more clearly. In order to make a determination about diminished capacity, she would have to be able to remember to give you specific details, right?
She would, or there would need to be other information that would tell me more about her thinking at the time, and I didn't have either. She didn't remember, and I didn't have anything that would give me that information otherwise.
And when we talk about specifically diminished capacity, that's at the moment of the act, right? Not later and not before,
That's
right
correct.
then?
Yes.
So because she could not remember, well, that immediate event, you were not able to make that assessment.
That's correct.
But a traumatic event can affect your ability to recall.
That's right.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Dr. Bidding?
Bidding.
Am I saying that correct? My name's Kevin McGalvin. I'm the prosecutor for the case. And I'll have a few questions for you. Are you the treating therapist for Ms. Daniels?
No.
So you're here as an expert witness hired by the court or somebody to come and testify as to what your findings were?
Yes, I met with Miss Daniels just the one time for the purpose of this evaluation.
So your relationship with her began after this event, after the homicide.
Yes, well after.
Is it fair to say then that your opinion is based at least on large part from either what she self-reported to you or retrospective accounts of what happened?
Yes, that's fair.
How many times have you testified as an expert?
Roughly 15 times.
How many times for a defendant?
I don't have the exact number. More often for defense than prosecution.
You, I think testified you diagnosed the defendant with major depressive disorder.
That's correct.
Where does the criteria for that come from?
The criteria for that and any other mental disorder comes from something called the DSM. It's kind of the manual for mental health professionals that.
And that would be the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, is that correct?
That's right.
You found that she does not meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's right.
Does the DSM or even your diagnosis state that a person suffering from depression is incapable of forming an intent to kill?
No.
In fact, there are millions of people who suffer from depression.
I don't know the exact number, but there are many people. It's a very common mental health disorder.
The vast majority of them never commit a violent act. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree that depression itself is not the equivalent of a psychotic break?
That's right.
It is not a condition that renders a person legally incapable of thought or planning.
It's not one that commonly does. It can, but it would be unusual.
Unusual for depression to render a person incapable of thought or planning.
That's right.
A person that's depressed can work, pay bills, go on with life as a general rule. Would you agree with that?
I can't answer that with a yes or no, because to be diagnosed with a mental disorder, it has to impair your functioning. And so many times people with depression, that's the functioning that it impairs. It impairs their ability to go to work or to pay their bills or to eat, sleep.
You testified that she did not meet the criteria for insanity.
That's correct.
And so by that, your testimony is that she understood the wrongfulness of her act.
I did not find evidence that would suggest that she was unable to understand the wrongfulness of her act.
So you're aware, I think you testified that you purchased a firearm before driving to the victim's house?
That's correct.
Purchasing a firearm would require planning. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
It in fact requires that she go through like several steps. You've got to have an ID. There's all kind of things you have to do to purchase a firearm.
That's my understanding, yes.
And she was able to do all that.
Yes, I assume so.
You're aware that she drove over 2 hours after purchasing the firearms to the victim's residence, a residence that she had never been to before.
I'm aware that she drove from her home to Memphis. I think the information I had indicates that she drove to like a cigar lounge or something first before going to the
location.
Yes.
Commuted a substantial way after purchasing the firearm
Yes,
and eventually ended up at the victim's house.
correct.
Would you agree that that requires concentration, navigation, purposeful action?
Yes.
Did the information you had indicate that when she got to the residence that Mr. Perry was not there?
That's correct.
Did it also indicate that she had a conversation with Mrs. Perry while they were waiting for the defendant to show up?
That's correct.
That appeared to be a normal conversation that didn't raise alarms and Miss Perry necessarily and
I don't recall anything in discovery that conversation raised any concerns for Ms. Perry.
so those are not random, confused, or disorganized actions in my mind. Would you disagree with that?
I do not disagree with that.
Would you agree they were sequential and goal-oriented?
Yes.
In Tennessee, are you aware that premeditation doesn't really even have a time period? That it can happen like in a matter of seconds, and all that's required is reflection and judgment before the act is done.
I'm aware it does not require a specific time period. The phrasing in the statute is always a little confusing to me. It's something like sufficiently free from passion and excitement to be able to exercise reflection and judgment, something like that.
Right. So there's no specific time period. So there's no, we got to give this person a count to 10 to cool off. There's nothing like that under Tennessee law, right? It's just reflection and judgment.
That's my understanding. And the reflection and judgment, again, statute says something like it has to be sufficiently free from passion and excitement.
Does the fact that she realized that she needed a weapon and the fact that she went to purchase the weapon indicate judgment to you?
I think yes, she made some judgments to purchase a weapon and have it with her.
Does the ability to drive from Little Rock, Sherwood, Arkansas to Memphis and then to Collierville to a specific location show judgment and the ability to carry out a plan to you?
Those actions suggest she was able to plan at the time.
Is it fair to say that a person suffering from depression can still make a reasoned decision to do things like that? So depression in itself would not keep a person from doing those things, from making those types of reasoned decisions.
Again, it's like the typical psychologist answer is that it depends. And I do think it depends. There are some people who can be depressed and it not affect their judgment or reasoning at all, and then other people where, again, that could be something, and research suggests that depression absolutely does affect someone's ability to make decisions.
But we've just said, or you just agreed with me, that she made a judgment and she took part in, there was a process of planning that went along with what her actions were that day.
I agree that her actions suggest she was able to plan and make judgments.
She admitted to you that she was heartbroken, upset, angry that the defendant, that Mr. Perry wanted to end the relationship with her.
She described to me feeling heartbroken and I forget the other words you used, I'm sorry.
Frustrated.
I don't recall her mentioning anger. It was a lot of kind of like internalizing, like I am heartbroken, I'm not enough, I'm a failure. I don't remember her talking about being angry.
Did she indicate to you she was frustrated that he would not tell his wife about the relationship they were having?
Yes, I believe she did tell me that she was frustrated about that.
Does frustration mean anger?
Absolutely, yes.
Did she talk to you about being under financial stress, at least in part because of money that she'd spent on going on trips with Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Did those feelings cause her to feel anger, frustration, regret?
Certainly regret. Again, I don't remember her talking much about feeling angry at the time.
So those are powerful emotions, right? Even if it was just frustration over the fact he wouldn't tell his wife, anger over the fact he wouldn't tell his wife, heartbreak over the fact that he wanted to end the relationship, and regret over the fact that she had spent money and was now in financial distress. Those are emotions, right?
Yes.
Strong, powerful emotions. Would you agree with that?
They certainly can be. Yeah, they can be intense emotions.
And those emotions are independent of your diagnosis of major depressive disorder. Would you agree with that?
The only emotion part of a diagnosis of major depression disorder is kind of the low mood or, sadness is kind of the emotional part of depression. and
So-
hopelessness.
Is that a yes? They're independent of that?
Well, I'm not sure. Emotions are not independent of it. So I think heartbroken you could put under sadness, and sadness is part of depression. Am I answering your question?
I think so.
Okay.
You testified a little bit about, and I don't want to go into details about it, but prior suicidal ideologies at least.
Correct.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about, there's a difference between a suicide attempt and a suicidal ideology, is that correct?
That's correct.
What's the difference?
The term psychologists often uses suicidal ideation. It just means thinking about suicide. It could even mean considering suicide. And of course, an attempt is when you actually try to kill yourself.
And you talked about she had past suicidal ideation.
Yes.
And then you also talked about a note that she wrote to some family members on this day that you saw.
That's correct.
Individuals suffering from suicidal ideation, do they often focus on their own suffering?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of the reason, right?
Yes.
Do people often have those thoughts and express those thoughts at stressful times, like when a relationship that they don't want to end is ending?
My most honest answer I can give you is that it depends. There are some people that when they have suicidal ideation, sometimes that immediately leads to like a suicide attempt. There's more impulsivity there. And then for other people, it's more of what you're talking about, where really it's like a stressor comes up, it brings up these thoughts of wanting to die or just kind of wanting to end it all. And then that kind of wave goes away.
And can it also be a way to try to control the outcome or control the other person? Like, I don't want this relationship to end. If I make this known, maybe I can control that in some way.
In my experience, that's often a stereotype. And in reality, a lot of the time, the people that I work with, they say those things because they really want to die. Oftentimes there's ambiguity when somebody wants to die. They want to die, but then there's that part of them that hopes that somebody will give them a reason to live. But in my experience, if someone brings up suicide in the context of like a relationship ending, it's very rarely for the purpose of like trying to like manipulate the other person. And it's more of like a true kind of distress.
Are suicide thoughts generally inwardly directed, or I guess that kind of goes along? Is that kind of inwardly directed, or is it oftentimes outwardly directed?
Can you ask me, I think I know what you're asking, but can you ask me in a different
So
way?
if someone is actually thinking about committing suicide, is that something that they generally, that's inside them that they direct toward them and not outwardly toward somebody else?
Yes. So if somebody's having suicidal ideation, they are wanting to harm themselves. It's directed inward.
So if Miss Daniels was wanting to harm herself, why would she drive to Mr. Perry's house and shoot him and his wife?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge. That's going beyond the scope of the testimony.
She's the expert. Why would she?
We're gonna take a break. We'll come back at 1:30. but we're gonna convene for lunch. Still not ready to discuss the case, so I'm gonna show you excuse for lunch. We'll see you back at 1:30.
Court stands in recess until 1:30. Jurors need to continue to pass in the chair and follow me.
All right, we'll come back at 1:30.
Your Honor, before you take a recess, just for the record, I brought Dr. Bidding here today, so she does not have a car. So I know that I'm not allowed to speak to her now that her
Right.
testimony is going on. So if the court wants to tell her how to get lunch, or if you need to see me, like, with no words, handing her a bag of snacks, whatever we need to do, I just want to make sure that she has the opportunity to eat as well.
All right, yes, you can discuss your testimony with anyone, but there are some places to eat around here. There's a
Okay.
place, there's a Subway downstairs, and if you can walk on the mall, there's some places, but.
Jurors are in the courtroom, Your Honor.
Are you ready to seated? All right, state you can continue.
Thank you. Dr. Bidding, I'm almost there. We talked a little bit about suicide kind of being inwardly directed self-harm, right?
That's right.
Would you agree that the actions of driving 2 hours after buying a gun, showing up to Mr. Perry's house because you're upset he's trying to end a relationship, and committing a homicide is not inwardly directed, that's outwardly directed rage?
I don't think I can give you an expert opinion about that because I don't know enough information about what was going on in terms of the person's mental state that you're talking about.
But you testify in legal proceedings often, right?
That's
Or
correct.
deal with the legal system often. Is there anything about a murder-suicide plot where I'm going to kill somebody and then kill myself that would diminish the mental state, the intent, the premeditation that would be required to commit premeditated murder?
Can you ask me that in a different way?
I don't know how to ask that in a different way.
Can you ask me again?
Yes.
Okay.
So if an individual were planning to kill someone and then kill themselves, is there anything about that, their actions toward the person that they were going to kill, that would make them legally not responsible, legally not, the legal mental state required to form the intent to kill somebody, and the planning and premeditation that was required to do that?
It is possible that someone could engage in a homicide, suicide, and not have the mental state required for the crime.
It's possible, but it's also possible that they could. Am I correct?
That's right.
Just the fact that you're suicidal does not mean that you don't have the mental state or the ability, the judgment and the ability to premeditate and plan a crime.
Simply being suicidal does not mean that you would not be able to form the intent.
You talked about childhood abuse. Does that, the fact that someone went through some trauma or some or a bad childhood, does that, anything about that prevent someone from forming intent to kill somebody and planning to do the killing? Just in and of itself.
Again, these are questions, this is a question that I probably can't answer truthfully in a yes or no, because it's more complicated than that. It depends. There are lots of things that trauma can cause in terms of mental health problems that could absolutely impact someone's ability to form intent.
But it doesn't necessarily.
That's
So every
correct.
person that was abused as a child can't just go out and kill somebody and claim, I don't have the requisite mental intent to be convicted of that crime.
I suppose they could claim it. I don't know that it would be supported.
And the fact that someone was in failed relationships or married more than once, does that, or went through a divorce, does that, in and of itself, mean that that person is not responsible for their criminal action?
Again, the not responsible part is a legal decision. What I can say as a psychological expert is that would not mean the person necessarily would be unable to form an intent for a crime.
And I think you make a good point there. You're not a legal expert, correct?
That's correct.
You've offered an opinion based upon a clinical diagnosis.
In this evaluation, my opinions were essentially clinical diagnoses, kind of what her mental health was around the time.
You're not offering an opinion as to whether she met the legal definition of premeditation required for first-degree murder, though, are you?
That's correct. I'm not offering an opinion about that.
And you were not able to find criteria that she met the definition for insanity.
That's correct.
You were not able to find the criteria that she met the legal criteria for diminished capacity.
That's something I did not offer an opinion about.
In fact, you say in your report that you're unable to offer an opinion regarding her mental state at the time of the offense.
That's correct.
So you can't say that she didn't act intentionally,
That's correct.
and you can't say that she didn't premeditate this homicide.
That's correct. I did not offer opinions about either one of those things.
That's all.
Rita Root. Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Benning, I want to touch on a couple things that Mr. McAlpin was speaking about. Okay?
Okay.
First, I wanted to cue in on something that you said to him during direct, talking about suicidal individuals, and you had said someone can truly want to die, but still hope that someone else could give them a reason to live. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Can you kind of elaborate on that for me?
Yes. In my experience, in my clinical work, I often work with people that have kind of chronic suicidal ideation. And it's very common for people to consider suicide when they become hopeless and feel like they don't know any other way out, and still want a way out. So it's, again, there's ambiguity there a lot of the time. They want to die, and I think they're open to being helped if someone can help them.
Did Ms. Daniels endorse that kind of mentality to you about this incident?
Yes.
Clinically speaking, is someone who has attempted suicide more likely to attempt suicide again?
Yes.
Now, people who commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide have to take actions to do that, right?
That's right.
So you can have sequential and goal-oriented actions moving towards a suicide.
That's correct.
You could procure a weapon or other means by which to actually affect the death, right?
That's right.
And that means you could go buy a gun to kill yourself.
That's right.
You can choose a place to commit suicide.
Yes.
You can drive to that place to commit suicide.
Yes.
You can plan out what you want to say to your family in a suicide note.
Yes.
Are all of those plans that you're making,
Yes, that is all planful behavior.
is that the result of reasoned judgment when you're dealing with a suicidal person?
I think that's a controversial answer. People who want to commit suicide have reasons for wanting to commit suicide. At the same time, like I said, often those people get there because they feel like there's no other option. And research relates that to depression, which kind of lowers our ability to think through our options and make decisions like we would when we're not depressed.
The ability to make sound and reasoned judgments, right?
I would agree with that. I think it depends on how we define sound and reasoned.
Severe depression that can result in those suicidal ideations, suicide attempts, or accomplished suicides. Severe depression, does it necessarily affect your basic ability to make and execute plans?
It does not necessarily affect that ability.
Does it affect the quality of your decision making?
Yes, I think that's fair.
Does severe depression affect your decision-making process?
Yes, depression kind of slows down everything, including your ability to think.
So severe depression can actually affect all of your thought processes.
You can.
Can mental health issues affect your judgment and reflection abilities?
Yes.
What is the difference between suicidality or suicidal ideations and homicidal ideations?
Suicidal ideations are thoughts about wanting to kill yourself. Homicidal ideations are thoughts about wanting to kill someone else.
Does someone who has suicidal ideations necessarily have homicidal ideations?
No.
Does someone who has homicidal ideations necessarily have suicidal ideations?
No.
Those two things can exist separately,
That's correct.
and oftentimes do.
That's correct.
When you evaluated Ms. Daniels, did you find her to have a history of suicidal ideations?
Yes.
And aside from this instant conduct, did you see her to have a history of homicidal ideations?
No.
When you're dealing with severe depression and mental health issues, can those issues affect the way an individual responds to emotional triggers?
Yes.
How?
If you're depressed, for example, or if you have other mental health problems going on, the way I think about it is that it makes you vulnerable. It kind of raises your, what do I want to say? It's easier, right? It's easier to react in an extreme way if your stress or your mental health is not doing well. It takes less to get a more kind of extreme reaction.
So can it affect your reason ability in the face of that trigger?
Yes.
Can it affect your ability to make decisions?
Yes.
Your ability to make well-reasoned decisions?
Yes.
Now, towards the end of when you were talking with Mr. McAlpin after lunch, you were saying suicide on its own is not necessarily indicative of things. Is suicidality usually indicative of a larger mental health issue?
It can be. Certainly if it's something that comes up during times when there are other mental health symptoms like depressive symptoms. There are some people that suicide comes up for them like once in their life because they're really stressed out or there's just a lot of things going on in their life. But in general, if someone is suicidal, it certainly raises the suspicion that there's a mental health problem going on.
And there's a whole spectrum of suicidalness, right? You have some people who could have a terminal degenerative disease that are choosing conscientiously to end their lives versus someone in a mental health crisis who takes their own lives.
That's right.
There's a whole spectrum.
Yes.
But oftentimes, wanting to commit suicide, those suicidal ideations are indicative of an underlying mental health issue.
Yes.
The suicidal ideation itself, is that its own mental health issue, or is it a symptom?
I think both. We would treat, even if someone didn't meet like a diagnosis for a mental health problem, the suicidal ideation would still be something that could be treated and addressed.
And it should be treated and addressed, right? That's a concerning symptom. Now I want to talk to you about when Mr. McAlpin was discussing your prior testimony experience, okay? You indicated that you have testified more for the defense.
That's
right?
correct.
Now, when you and I were speaking earlier, you talked about this, a not guilty by reason of insanity defense is extremely rare.
Yes.
How many evaluations do you think you have done?
Evaluations specifically to,
Forensic evaluations.
at this point in my career, well over 800.
Okay. How many times have you found someone to meet the threshold of not guilty by reason of insanity?
Less than,
Me or her? Okay, I'll be louder. He was saying he couldn't hear me.
Okay.
Of the 800 evaluations, how many times have you found individuals to be not guilty by reason of insanity?
less than 2% of those evaluations.
It's an extremely high standard.
Yes, it's difficult to meet.
And Ms. Daniels did not meet that standard, right?
It's my opinion she would not meet that standard.
Okay. In your practice as a forensic psychologist, this is what you do. You said you've done over 800 evaluations, right?
That's correct.
Oftentimes, when you end up at a trial, it's because someone was found not guilty by reason of insanity, in your opinion, right?
If I end up at trial, it typically isn't for not guilty by reason of insanity. There's only been one instance in my career where I've testified at a trial for that purpose,
Was that for the defense or for the state?
for the state.
Okay. Of the 800 evaluations, are most of those court-appointed?
Yes.
Is that usually state-oriented? Are you usually hired separately by the defense?
Most of my work, I'm appointed by the court, so I'm not hired by defense or prosecution. When I am hired privately, when I'm hired by one party or the other, it is typically that I'm hired by the defense.
The state kind of already has you at access through Vanderbilt, right?
Through the court-ordered process, yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about when Mr. McAlpin was discussing your basis of information, okay?
Okay,
You only met with Ms. Daniels one time.
that's right.
Is that normal for your evaluations to only meet with the person one time?
It's not uncommon, certainly. I think for these evaluations, it's typically 1 to 2 meetings.
And is that the same whether you're testifying for the defense or for the state?
Yes.
In either instance, do you blindly rely on self-reporting?
No, again, the idea is that there needs to be other data that would support what the defendant is telling me.
And did you look for that other data here?
Yes,
And you found Tabatha Perry's statement.
correct?
Did you believe it corroborated what Ms. Daniels told you?
Yes,
You read police reports.
yes,
Did you believe that corroborated what Ms. Daniels told you?
in a sense, she wasn't able to remember a lot of what was actually in police reports. Meaning, like, what was mostly in police reports is what they observed when they got to the scene. And she's saying that she doesn't remember a lot of what happened during the incident and immediately after. So in that sense, know. But the things that she did remember, those were consistent with.
The
What was in the
police
police reports?
reports corroborate mental health concerns for you?
The police reports confirmed that she was pointing a gun at her head and was then shortly after arrest indicating that she wanted to kill herself.
The receipts that you saw corroborated the timeline that she gave you.
That's right.
The suicide note corroborated those suicidal ideations she talked to you about.
That's right.
The video of Brodes Perry talking about seeing her at the cigar lounge corroborated her timeline of events for you.
That's right.
Did you find Ms. Daniels to be a woman who suffers from mental illness?
Yes.
Did you find that she is a woman who has suffered from mental illness for a long time?
I know I'm being nitpicky here. For a long time, I can say that she was endorsing depressive symptoms for at least 2 years before the offense happened.
And even all the way back to the end of her first marriage, right? With that first suicide attempt.
That's right.
So that takes us back to like a 10-year period of time, right?
That's true.
What was the overriding emotion endorsed by Ms. Daniels when you met with her?
The overriding emotion she endorsed around the time of the offense was sadness, hopelessness.
When you talked about defensive avoidance, what do you mean by defensive?
Defensive in that context is talking about how our brain naturally tries to defend us against traumatic things. So avoiding thoughts of a scary memory is a type of like mental defense.
Is that different than someone behaving defensively? Like that almost, kind of reaction?
Yes.
And in speaking with Ms. Daniels, she talked to you about the fact that she was always expected to put on a happy face, right?
That's right.
No matter what was going on inside of her.
That's right.
And that had been her reality since she was a child.
Yes.
I want to talk to you now about something you and Mr. McAlpin discussed regarding impulsivity. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what impulsivity is?
Impulsivity is when somebody acts quickly in the heat of a moment. Sometimes when you hear impulsivity, people say it's like acting without thinking. But typically it's acting really quickly, like unexpectedly in the heat of a moment.
And how does impulsivity tie to mental health issues?
There are mental health issues that include impulsivity, and it's not necessarily, it's a symptom of a few, but not necessarily common across all mental health disorders.
Is it associated with depressive disorders?
Not typically.
Okay. What was the context of the impulsivity when you were speaking with Mr. McAlpin?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you find any impulsivity issues with Ms. Daniels in her reasoning?
Can you rephrase that?
That was a poorly worded question, I apologize. Did you, does impulsivity affect decision making?
If somebody is like an impulsive person, typically that means that they make poor decisions and again, react without a whole lot of thought about consequences.
Can impulsivity be associated with suicidal attempts or suicidal ideations?
Yes. The research that's out there about completed suicides, people that attempt and they end up dying, typically that is related to impulsivity. Most of the time suicidal acts are impulsive.
I'm going to shift gears for just a minute. In assessing Ms. Daniels, did Latosha endorse feelings of remorse about what happened?
Yes,
Significant remorse?
yes.
Now, last thing I want to talk to you about. As a psychologist, you meet with people and discuss the most intimate parts of their lives, right?
More so in my clinical work than my forensic work, but yes,
You find out the most personal details of people.
yes.
Is that a relationship that has to be based on trust?
I would say in the clinical sense, yes. In a forensic evaluation, it's difficult to build trust in a matter of a few hours. And it's not a priority in forensic evaluations for there to be trust there. But absolutely, in a clinical sense, yes, trust is very important.
Because in that context, the person with whom you are dealing is extraordinarily vulnerable,
Yes,
and they have completely opened themselves up to you.
yes. As far as I know.
That's all I have.
All right, any recross?
No, ma'am.
All right, you may step down, ma'am. All right, jurors need to take a short break. So we'll reconvene shortly. So I'm gonna show you excuse this time, and remember, we're still not ready to discuss the case.
Folks, be sure to leave your cash in your chair.
Courtroom.
They're going to be so excited when you finally tell them that they can talk about it.
All right, so just let me know when you're ready to just.
Yeah, we could just step out.
All right, I'll give you some time. All right, and take a recess. Let me swear him in. All right. You can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will take charge of this jury, that you will keep them separate and apart from all persons, that you will not allow them to communicate in any manner with anyone nor anyone with them, and as it concerns the matter on trial, nor with you nor you with them, and that you will deliver them safely into court, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we can take a recess.
What's a recess?